there's a new thing in the world of software development, and that is slop squatting.
Oh, Lord. All right, welcome back to another Front End Fire. I'm your host for this week, Jack Harrington, and with me are my esteemed colleagues, Paige Niederinghouse.
Hey, everybody.
And TJ Van Tol.
Hey, hey.
All right. It's a good week for news. Let's get into it.
Let's do it.
Paige, what are you telling us about this week?
Well, I am talking about AI, since we talk about AI pretty much every week.
It's nothing out there. Nobody cares about that stuff.
No, never. But yeah, so OpenAI has some new updates that they released this week. So if you're a subscriber, you probably have seen some of this because it's a newsletter that they send out. But they have two big announcements. The first is that they have new ChatGPT models that are specifically for development and coding. That's what they call it out for. So this is GPT 4.1, and they have a plus and a plus, a mini, and a nano version of GPT 4.
Sound like phones.
I know. It's getting to be that way. But they say that these are trained for developer use cases related to coding, and they're better at instruction following and function calling. So that will remain to be seen once we start using them, but that's what they say. And they also have a much larger context window of 1 million tokens of context. So you can have some pretty in-depth conversations with these and not run out of memory, which is nice.
Do you guys really run into context window problems? Because, I mean, I generally don't, but...
I have, but that's probably because I continue to have kind of iterative conversations. I've hit it more recently with Claude than I have with ChatGPT. But Claude is also generating like massive files worth of code for me because I'll give it some snippet to start with and then it will add on and Claude, I can probably tell it not to, but Claude feels the need to just like print out the whole file, not just the things that it's changing. In case I need to double check anything, I probably should ask it not to do that going forward, but it can be.
I run into it some when I'm in agent mode and GitHub Copilot or Cursor, and I wanted to look at a whole bunch of files. And so sometimes I ran into this the other day where I was having it. I was like, I need to implement it something similar to this. And then I had this, it was managing this context of a bunch of files. And at some point it would just get rid of files. And that's presumably because on its own end, it just can't handle so much. So I guess I do hit it in certain scenarios like that where I'm asking it a question, but I need it to know about my code base, which is even going to get more true as we start using these tools in bigger, more production code bases. Ideally, it would be able to take all of it into account.
Yeah. It needs to like summarize your code base a little bit. I guess that's what cursor rules are for. Yeah.
Maybe. So that's part number one. And then part number two, which is probably the more interesting part, is that there is a new thing called the Codex CLI, which sounds super cool.
It does.
Very futuristic.
Yeah.
It's a good name.
And
it really is. The Codex.
I know.
I feel like I'm in a James Bond movie or something.
Right. And the whole idea or the summary behind it is for devs who like to live in the terminal and want the ChatGPT level reasoning plus the power to run the code, manipulate the files, and iterate. And the quote that I took out of this was, chat-driven development that understands and executes your repo. That's kind of it in a nutshell. Yeah, I know. Your faces are skeptical.
Yeah.
My face was skeptical too because I don't like living in the terminal, but maybe that's just because I'm a front-end developer who likes GUIs and likes putting things up on the screen in the browser. But for people who are terminal focused, those Emacs and Vims diehards, maybe this will be great for you.
Yeah, I think Claude came out with something like this.
That's what I was going to say. It seems very similar to Claude Code. And I wonder, because I was going to bring this up in bonus news, but it feels appropriate here, that OpenAI is in talks to acquire Windsurf, the editor of Windsurf. Allegedly for $3 billion, which is also the...
What?
Whoa.
absolutely insane part of that story. But I wonder if Claude and OpenAI are at least currently hitting this from the CLI angle just because they don't have an editor. And from
Probably.
the looks of it, OpenAI is allegedly, this is not official, at least at the time that we're recording this, OpenAI is allegedly looking to acquire one. So if that's the case, they might look to move some of this functionality into the editor itself.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like what they all do now, like Cursor and Windsurf and VS Code, they've all got the integrations that you can hit like Command L or something like that in your terminal, and you just type in there, and then it goes and does your terminal stuff for you. And also, like when you're doing your like the chat bar, it can actually control the terminal, which I guess would be like the thing that this couldn't, the Codex, even though the Codex sounds like the coolest thing ever. It can't do that.
Well, it can actually. It can
Oh,
execute commands. So
okay, yeah.
so it's very much like Claude Code where you're in the terminal, you tell it to look at a repo and make some changes. So all you have to do to get it working is to plug in your OpenAI API key. Provides network disabled directory sandboxed code, so it cannot go outside
Oh,
of where it's working currently, but it is multimodal, so you can put in like screenshots or images, and it can use that if you're building UI related features, which seems so weird to me to even think about like putting that into a command line, but I
right?
guess.
Are you putting in a URL? What are you doing?
I don't know. I didn't go too far into it,
Yeah,
but
that's
it
a
said it was
good one. Yeah.
multimodal.
All right.
And then it has three modes that it supports. It supports the suggest mode, which is when it's just reading your files and then making suggestions, but not actually making the changes in your files. It has auto edit, which is the read and write, so it can make changes. And then it has full auto, which is read, write, and execute shell commands. And you just sit back and watch it go, and it does whatever it feels like.
Let OpenAI take the wheel. Yeah.
Right.
YOLO.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that all of these are coming up with like three names, like ask, edit, and agent. Right? Is
Yeah.
the VS
Yeah.
Code version.
Pretty
Why
much
not
the
just
same thing,
why come up with different nomenclature for everything? I don't know.
because we have to be unique
I
and have that
guess. Yeah.
value proposition.
Okay. All right.
By the way, the other bit of that OpenAI and Windsurf story is that supposedly they had talked to the people at Cursor first. That came out as well. But apparently, this from a Bloomberg reported that AnySphere, the company behind Cursor, is in talks to raise funding at a valuation of close to $10 billion, which is an even more outrageous number. So, in case you were wondering whether there's any interest in this space, the answer is yes. Between OpenAI, Codex, and Claude Code, and Cursor, and Windsurf, investors are happy to throw money into this space. Apparently,
It's the new VC hot space.
yep.
So if Windsurf is worth $3 billion, and like, these numbers are absurd. If Windsurf is worth $3 billion, and then Cursor's worth 10, how much is VS Code at Microsoft worth? I mean, that's doing 95% of the lifting here,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
They can't even evaluate it, Jack. It's priceless.
What? It's insanity. Yeah, crazy.
Well, I also heard, and I don't know if this is true because it sounds even more far-fetched, that OpenAI was also thinking about creating a social media network. I don't know. Yeah, I know. I don't know what this would entail. I don't know any details, but I saw a headline and didn't click on it because it just sounds so out there. But that might also be
It's like if you
something.
really like the bots on X, you're like, oh, I just want to hear more from the bots. These humans, no, I don't care about them. Who cares? But the bots, I really want the bots.
This is what happens when you raise a ridiculous amount of money, though, because you're like,
right.
you're like, what do we do with it? It's like somebody who gets suddenly rich and just wants some sports cars and some boats and stuff. This is the equivalent of that. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
we could use an editor. Let's scoop up one of those. Like, oh, we could start a social media network. Great, yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Got all this money.
This is why we have these editors, is because they were plugins. But I'm sure investors are like, come on, man, I gave you like, hundreds of millions of dollars. You're not going to give me something I can download and like run. Come on, give me an editor. And they're like, oh, okay, we'll just reskin VS Code, or not, whatever.
Yep.
Okay, TJ, what you got?
I have some non-AI news, thankfully. Next.js 15.3 is out this week. The headlining feature of this release is that TurboPack, so TurboPack is Vercel's Webpack replacement. It has the previous release of Next had a stable release of Next.dev so that you could use Next.dev -- TurboPack and use TurboPack during development. Well, new in this release, in the 15.3 release, is an alpha release of Next build -- TurboPack. So previously TurboPack was only available during development, and now you can actually build your apps with TurboPack as well. Again, just under alpha, so experiment with it. Probably don't switch over your production builds here at the moment, but kind of exciting because TurboPack has been Vercel's big thing for quite a while now, and they claim 90% of their tests are passing, and this is just kind of one of the final steps to enabling it and then making it the default. But that's the sort of headlining feature behind this release.
So what does building with TurboPack get me? Is it just faster build times? Are there any other? Okay.
Yeah.
Still the same application under the hood, still lightning fast,
Should be exactly the same.
internal links and all that good stuff, just faster builds.
Just faster, speed up your CI, that sort of thing. I think this was more exciting, honestly, for development mode, because I think that's where you really notice the little like speed differences, speed of refresh, that sort of thing. But obviously they probably want to completely get rid of Webpack at some point, and so just switching absolutely everything over to TurboPack is their goal here. And this build is just the next step towards that.
And I think they're also announcing like community support for RS Pack.
Yeah, so that was the other thing in this release. The RS team has created a community plugin for Next, and they basically say this provides an option for Next.js users who need near exact Webpack API compatibility but cannot yet move to TurboPack. So it's basically a path forward, because presumably, I imagine from Vercel's team, they want to get rid of Webpack, and they see, well, hey, RS Pack is still actively being maintained. So for people that need to keep Webpack around, RS Pack is a great thing to just sort of migrate to, because RS Pack's whole deal is that they're like a Webpack compatible, a newer, faster version of Webpack that's API compatible. So they say it's not an official Next.js plugin, but they're partnering and they're working directly with the RS Pack team. So in theory, you would think then they're just making sure it's stable and works for everybody, but also kind of a cool announcement.
And it supports Module Federation too, so that's I think a win.
Nice.
Yeah.
And RS Pack. No, go ahead. Please go ahead.
Oh, I don't know if Next is compatible with that, but I mean,
Good question.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Go on.
Well, I was just going to say RS Pack is owned and maintained by the parent company of ByteDance, or the parent company of TikTok, ByteDance. So it's probably not going to go away anytime soon. It's probably a very safe bet that even though it's not a Next Vercel owned adapter, it'll be fine for a while to come.
Well, at least, I don't know. They kick the can down the road on that one again, so who knows?
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Great. All right. So, what I have for this week is, sadly, more AI news. So, but actually it's really cool. So, it's about the Web AI survey. You might not have known about this. There's actually only about 3K respondents, but basically it's a survey that's pointed at web developers and their intersectionality with AI. So, what we use in terms of tooling and actually the AIs and all that. So some interesting kind of standout part of this survey, obviously, when it comes to like just model providers. OpenAI and ChatGPT just rules the world, and people actually like it. Claude comes in a second, Copilot comes in a third, which is kind of interesting. I mean, I don't really think about Copilot as like a generalized model, but that's where that is.
Yeah, looking through this, the classification of some things is tricky.
Yeah.
It's really hard to put some of these tools in buckets, but I mean they tried their best. Yeah, I don't really think of it as a model provider.
Right. And interesting, like on like the IDE section, they had, let's see, so Cursor and Zed were the top ones. And then if you scroll down to the other IDEs, VS Code was like way outstripping those, which is crazy because I think Cursor had like 33% used and VS Code had like 41% used. So it just should have been on the list of things to pick. It just wasn't. So it's kind of a weird setup.
I wonder, since the agentic stuff is new in VS Code, whether they just didn't consider it as part of this category. Although that's a little bit weird because GitHub Copilot's been in there for years at this point.
Yeah.
So.
Right? Yeah. Crazy. And then I did notice, like, when you mentioned context windows, like every single like pain point is context window, context window, context window. You know, like everybody's like, not enough.
Context window and hallucinations. Which,
Yes.
Again, I don't think it's surprising anybody, but it is interesting to see.
Yeah.
It was also interesting to see how few people are actually using stuff like V0. So like of that 3K people, basically 26% were saying that they used, and that was the top one of these kind of site generators. 26% used V0, and then 40% didn't even know what V0 was. You know, it's like, okay, so... But it does, to me, it's interesting because so many companies now are coming out with these, like Convex just did their site builders, and like
There's one called Lovable that I just learned about today, which is another one where you just give it a prompt and it generates a great landing page or a website for you.
Yeah,
I think.
And they got in trouble with Figma because actually Figma said you can't use dev mode, which they used, so they got cease and desisted.
Oh yeah, I saw that, but. I think I would have to say that probably the reason, well, one, there's too many of them. So we're just inundated with new things every week, every day, multiple times a week. So you can't keep up, first of all. And then the other thing is that all these things, they seem to be aimed at developers, and yet it forces developers to break out of the flow that they're in if they're in their IDE doing their normal job.
Right?
And I'm not going to think about that when I'm trying to figure out how to build a table that has, draggable rows. I'm going to be talking to Claude or ChatGPT or somebody who's right there next to me about what my current code looks like, not just go to like V0 and be like, hey, can you design me up a super cool, fancy table?
Spin up a whole new code base.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I need that. Like, what am I going to do? Like, spin up a whole new code base and then somehow extricate all of that stuff? Like, no?
No.
I don't think so.
I think, too, like, the V0s and the Bolt New, which was on that same list as well, is I think they're not so much aimed at us. They're more for people who are mildly technical that are looking to build things.
Vibe coders.
Yeah, I think like vibe coding, and also I guess too if you're starting something new, but most of us don't start things new. Most of our day-to-day is we have a production app or two that we work on, and that's what we do spend all our time in. And I feel like at least right now, like the V0, I mean, V0 and Bolt both open up with a big text box. It's like, what do you want to build? And so they're not relevant if my accounting app needs a new page. That's not going to help me at all.
Right.
Yeah, and it's like I've got Figma over here. My hard designer's working in Figma. I've got my VS Code running. So now they want me to go and implement on their design. Cool. Okay, so now I'm going to screenshot it and then take it over to Bolt and my browser and then get some code. And then I got to go in. It's just like a nightmare flow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, I found GitHub Copilot is listed as a coding assistant, which is yet another category on this survey. And 71% of people have used GitHub Copilot, mostly with a positive experience there. It's just classified in yet another category on this survey. I think they're struggling to put things into logical groupings, which makes sense. These things are hard to group.
Yeah, they could span across a lot of categories depending on which, what you're talking about.
Wasn't Bolt the one that was doing the hackathon with the crazy the concert?
Yes.
Yeah.
Chain smokers, $1 million in prizes.
The IP list.
Yeah.
Well, apparently 13% on this survey gets to the chain smokers. Apparently. About 13% of usage.
That number's about to go up.
I guess so. Chain smokers are using it. That's like another 1% there.
Yeah.
Woohoo! All right. Do we have any bonus news for this week?
Well, on the other thing on the survey is that Front and Fire was included.
Oh, yeah.
We were the 10th most popular podcast. So thanks to those of you that put us in. That was really cool to see. That made our morning this morning, seeing our names on there.
Absolutely.
So that was very exciting.
Thank you.
Oh, I guess there's also something on there I wanted to talk about, which is like they do have like an interesting like section on like existential risk and do you think AI is going to take over and when do you think AGI is going to come out? And essentially, like, nobody really thinks that AGI is coming anytime soon, or artificial general intelligence, meaning, like, you know, the thing that actually, like, just is basically a human in a box kind of thing. And at this point, nobody's really all that not concerned as much about their jobs as they were, like, in the initial phases of this. Because, you know, it's all kind of gotten into this world, like, as you say, the hallucinations and all that sort of stuff. It's like, we kind of know now what we're getting and what it's good for, and it's not replacing engineers anytime soon.
Yeah, the shine has worn off, and now a lot of us have seen a lot more of how it works under the hood, and I think that's taken away a lot of the magic and coolness of it. Just the fact that we've seen a lot of the limitations, I guess. As soon as it came out, it was new, and everybody was just amazed, and now we're seeing what it's actually good for, which is not everything.
Yeah.
Apparently, to the average, so AI code generation, they asked what percentage of the code you write is AI generated. The average number, 28%.
Yeah.
Which
sounds
honestly
right.
feels about right. I don't remember exactly what I answered, but I think that feels about what my percentage is too, somewhere in that area.
Yeah. Speaking of which, how's Devon 2.0 doing?
I haven't used it this week, so I don't know.
Okay.
It's
all right.
still kind of it relies on me finding a task that I think would be good for Devon, basically.
Of which you've not been able to find one all week. So.
I did not find one this week, so.
I mean, I've been reviewing a PR that Devon has been slaving over for the past week because it's sessions. So Devon is trying to implement sessions in a new project because we don't have auth yet, but we need to have like the idea of different chats that are happening.
Yeah.
And I mean, it took me about 3 hours to go through the first PR that Devon put up. And there were a lot of comments that I had about Devon's poor coding standards or things that just didn't match the existing repository, or why did you put this file over here in a new folder, Devon? There's another folder that it should go with the other files.
Bad, Devon, bad.
Yeah. So, I'm not super impressed with Devon, but at the same time, it's a complex task that it was strapped with, so it probably would have taken a lot longer to get to this point of reviewing it and telling it that it's not good enough otherwise. So I'm still on the fence about Devon.
Oh, Paige. You know, when the AGI thing takes over, it's going to be like, Paige Niederinghouse, I remember you. You gave me a bad recommendation on my PR. Into the gulag with you.
Right.
All right. Okay. Now we're gonna get into bonus news.
I think so, and I've got a new term for both of you that you might not have heard before. Get ready though, because this is a doozy.
Oh boy.
So there's a new thing in the world of software development, and that is slop squatting.
Oh Lord. Okay, hit me.
So have you heard? There's the term typo squatting, and that's when, for example, you buy a domain name that's like one letter off. You buy like Google with an F, like GOOGLF.com, and you expect like, okay, people are going to typo this. They'll end up here. I'll throw a bajillion ads on this page and some malicious stuff, whatever. So that is typo squatting.
Yes.
Now, slop squatting is based off this, but a little bit different. It exploits the fact that AIs like to hallucinate package names. So, for example, if you are going to implement a feature and you need to pull in an NPM module, and let's say it's an NPM module that's a little bit popular but not super popular and maybe uses like an unconventional name, occasionally AIs will just mess up that name, right?
Yeah.
For whatever reason, they'll invent it or whatever. So what some entrepreneuring hacky people have discovered is, hey, what if we register these package names? we give them very realistic looking readmes so that AIs scoop this up and make it seem even more legitimate, but then just make it totally malicious so that if people actually do download and run it, we can do potentially bad things. And so this has come up. There's actually one specific example that came up just a few weeks ago with a package called async-mutex. And I don't even know what this package does, but what AI commonly, somebody came up with the idea of registering a package called @async-mutex/mutex, essentially putting a namespace behind it, which is quite common. Yep. And AIs will sometimes point to that one, and then they put out a very realistic looking readmes. And then, of course, like Google's AI overview will ingest it and think these AIs just start to put out all this fake data, and the AIs slowly legitimize it as an actual legit thing when it's actually a malicious package. And this is happening for JavaScript packages. It's also happening in the Python world. So this is not specific to the front end space. Basically any package system is vulnerable to this sort of thing because
it just needs to be popular enough, right? I mean, you wouldn't go to do this in some other minor
Haskell.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Haskell.
Yep, you just need a big enough ecosystem. But slop squatting, that's the
great.
Ugh.
Yeah.
So I guess the practical takeaway of this is be careful when your AI tells you to install things. Maybe be careful about putting your terminal in YOLO mode or whatever. What was Codex calling it? I don't even remember, but fully autonomous.
Fully autonomous, right, exactly.
Yes, full auto. That's what they call it.
Full auto.
Yes.
So,
oh man,
maybe use some care before you turn on that full auto mode because you might be downloading some things that look legit and then totally are not.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I mean, that could definitely be a problem if you not to go back to the whole V0 bolt thing, or whatever. But if they're if I'm working on a project and I'm in VS Code or Cursor or whatever, and it goes and it says, "Oh, I want a new package," I'm gonna be like, "Oh, okay." Do we really need this? I mean, it's going to be, whatever. But if I do Bolt or V0 or whatever, I'm getting a whole project from them. And did I look at the package JSON to see what was in there? Probably
not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You want async mutex? Sure, sounds good. Let's go.
Right. Well, and the bot might just download the malicious one, say like, oh, well, this doesn't work. Let me just download another one and just try again, right? And you just don't even, you got both in there. Who knows? It's
true.
Not these bots aren't necessarily great about saying like, oh, let me clean up my previous stuff. They're just going for input output. Does it work?
Yeah, we definitely need like a YOLO except for package imports mode, or something like that. Except that, I want to know. All right, more bonus news?
I was just going to briefly mention, we already talked about the explosion in these sort of AI systems, but Firebase came out with one this past week. So if you're a Firebase person, of course, now they have Firebase Studio, which was AI-based.
Right, that was, they had another name for it before, but this is not a new thing. It's just a rebranding.
Oh, did they just pivot it to be just because they wanted to throw AI branding on it?
Yeah.
Okay. But I saw that one, and then Arduino also. So if you're in the IoT space, that's why this one particularly caught my eye. Arduino will now have an AI assistant. Basically, nobody is immune. If you have a system, you're like legally obligated to add an AI assistant for it.
Is this the little Arduino IDE, which is like basically Notepad with a serial bus connection?
It is, and
oh my god,
it's still out there.
AI.
Oh, now it's got AI.
It's still out there. It still works.
The editor.
And now it has an AI assistant that I don't know who was asking for.
That's what I think about a lot of these AI companies that have popped up is who was asking for this product that you're now selling.
Like, it's such an ordeal. Like, man, I have to copy and paste things into Claude or OpenAI. That's so tough that I for sure need another pane on the side that lets me do it directly from every single window that I'm in.
But poor electronics teacher in high school, who's using who's teaching the kids with the Android, the Arduino IDE, Now they're like, putting prompts in and being like, oh, if I did it in like 2 seconds. Well, do you know what you did? No, I don't.
No, I can't read this code.
No, see? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Man. All right. Any other bonus news?
No.
All right.
Thankfully, that's the last AI assistant I have to talk about.
All right. Do we have a Kickstarter this week?
We have Firestarter.
Firestarter. Exactly. Yeah, there you go. Do we have a... Okay.
I'd already hit the button, Jack. I was impatient.
Okay. Let's go. What's Firestart?
This is a quick one. So Safari 18.4 came out this week. You can download it. If you update, it's tied to the Mac OS release. So if you update your Mac OS, you will get it.
Handy.
It's kind of a small release. There's not a lot big in there, but the one thing that they highlighted is a new way of sending push notifications that they pushed out in this release that they call declarative push. And the idea on this is it's a way of sending push notifications without using a service worker. So they talk, if you've done push on the web before, you know that today it's done through what's called the web push APIs, and they're all done through service workers. So there's a way you can configure your service workers to say you accept notifications, and there's some APIs for wiring all that up. But the Safari team has this write-up where they say that service workers result in higher complexity. They come with measurably greater CPU and battery usage to show notifications. And so they wrote this API that kind of builds on top of the existing push API, so it retains backwards compatibility. But it's basically a way that you can just, without a service worker, you can just do window.pushmanager.subscribe, and then there's various other things. You have to read through the full article to get the full API that basically allows you to do push without a service worker, which is interesting.
Cool.
And they've got it going through the standards process as well. So it's not like a fully ratified thing, but it's in various stages of the working group spec process. I don't remember the exact terminology for that, but they are working through that to try to make it an official thing for all browsers, but in much the Apple way. It's already live.
Of course, yeah.
So you could try it out, but yeah.
Cool.
Have y'all done push notifications? I have not, actually.
No.
Yeah.
I've done them for native mobile apps. I've never done them for the web. They are awful for native mobile applications. I can tell you that. On the web, though, I've never had a web app that could benefit from them, I guess. But I kind of like to try it because it seems super valuable. The one tricky part for iOS specifically is that you can only do them for your web app if somebody's added it to their home screen. So they don't allow it through, because that's basically what makes it a progressive web app or an installed web app.
Oh, I see. So it's a PWA feature. Got it. Okay,
yeah. But because of that, like as we've discussed on previous episodes, not a lot of people do that, especially on iOS. Right. So I think part of the reason I've never gone down that path is because I've never worked on an app that had users that were running PWAs.
Right.
So unfortunately, I've just the need has never come up.
Have you used service workers? Because I've never even had to use those in an application.
I've created some simple service workers just so that if somebody does install it, it gets the right icon and the right colors and that sort of thing. So I've done the basics with that. I've also done some bit with service workers just to make sure the site was usable if the internet connection was lost. Right. It just did something reasonable as a fallback.
Yeah.
But I've never taken the next step and gone on to things like push, or there's some more advanced things you could do with service workers as well. And I've never worked on a system that needed that level of complexity.
Yeah, same.
Well, now we know we can do it better if we're on iOS.
Yeah.
Or easier.
I mean, I'd love to hear reports from people. If you do use push on the web, I'd love to hear just a report from it. So you can let us know in our YouTube comments or
what you're actually using it for.
Whatever, because it's something that I don't think any of us have any experience with. So,
all right. Well, let's see what's making us happy this week.
Woo.
TJ, what's making you happy this week?
The New York Times game Flashback is making me happy. Have either of you played this game before?
Mm-mm. Tell us about it.
Yeah, please, go for it.
So it's a weekly game where the premise is quite simple. They send it out and they give you, it's like 8 or 10 events that you just have to put in the right order. So all of them have dates associated with them, and it's drag and drop. It's actually a nice web. Like whoever wrote the drag and drop bit did a pretty good job. So I kind of like it from that angle.
On that side.
Yeah. On that random note. But I like it partially because I'm pretty good at this. I'm not usually good at games. Like most of the New York Times games, my family just crushes me. I'm bad at Wordle. I'm bad at Connections, if you've played that New York Times game. All those I'm really bad at. But Flashback I can just crush my family at, which is a really good feeling. And
you can't feel good about questioning your kids on that, though, because they weren't there.
They're 14 now, man. They have a chance.
And history.
Yeah, okay, exactly. Right. They're actively in history classes. So I mean, come on.
Well, what eras are these flashbacks kind of?
So all different eras. They sometimes highlight things that are going on in the news where they'll call back to previous times where something like that has been relevant. I did pull out a couple random facts from last week's that I thought were interesting. So the Dutch East India Company was formed in 1602. So that was the year you had to solve for. But it was the first company to issue stock publicly, which I didn't know. So I picked that up from it. The game Jenga originated in Ghana in the early 1970s. The word Jenga actually comes from the Swahili word for build. And a woman, Leslie Scott, and her family played the game, brought it back to the UK, and it got popular from there. So I learned about the history of Jenga. And the last one I called out is the word masterpiece actually dates back to medieval times. And it comes from when guilds would ask their apprentice to craft something in order to become a master. So then the actual item was a masterpiece. And that word has stuck around ever since.
That's really cool. Yeah.
So I don't know. If you're the type of person that likes just really random stuff like that, and it's a game that's somewhat frustrating too, because I screw things up too, because I don't. It does ask from truly all eras. So
does it give you like multiple passes at it? Like how do you? Like,
nope, you put it. You're just scored. So you're given the items one at a time, and then you're scored when you drop it. So you drop it, and if it's like a shuffle. You're putting the card in the right order. If you get it right, you get a point. If you get it wrong, you lose points.
Okay. So you just basically have to decide before, after. Well, I guess a bunch of different things. Like all right.
It typically starts easy because it'll be like there'll only be one event on the board, so you have a pretty good idea of whether the second thing is before or after that. But then by the time you get 8 or 9 things down, then it gets a lot harder.
Cool.
All right, Paige, what's making you happy?
The anime series Solo Leveling, which is available on Crunchyroll for those of you who are in the US, is making me happy. So the second season just came out, and my husband watched the first season and then roped me into it because he said it was good, and it was very good. It's if you like anime power-up shows where they kind of keep leveling up, it's sort of like that, but only one character has that ability. All the other characters, once they've determined what their level is, are kind of stuck there, and so he's secretly leveling up and like getting stronger, and people are trying to figure out what's going on because that doesn't normally happen. And then there's monsters coming through a portal that they have to fight, or multiple portals. The portals show up all over.
Is there a school involved?
There's guilds instead.
Oh, okay.
So you join a guild after you've been measured for your skill, and so all the guilds, once they start to catch on that he's way stronger than they thought, are all vying for his attention. So, it's the first season was great. Second season was also good. The animation is great. It's set in South Korea instead of Japan, which is unusual, but also so the characters have traditionally Korean names, but it's all dubbed in English and probably a bunch of other languages because it's on Crunchyroll, so you can watch it all in whatever language you prefer. But yeah, it's a fun one. It's a kind of an interesting premise because not everybody can level up. Only one person can, and all the different skills, and there are mages and there are fighters and there are healers and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of like a Dungeons and Dragons mashup. But yeah, it's a fun one, and it'll, every episode's 20-25 minutes, so you'll go through it
Yeah,
in
that's
no
nice.
time.
Yeah.
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 One thing that's always confused me is that in the US at least, I think this is true in Europe as well, animated television has really never taken off, with the exception of we'll do comedies, your Family Guys, your South Parks, your Simpsons,
Archer.
that sort of thing. But
Archer was great.
there's no animated dramas, like literally zero. I'm pretty sure that when you think about the shows that really take off here, they're all live action. And the thing is that is so limiting. Like, imagine what Game of Thrones could do if you didn't have to worry about paying people to do video dragons and pay however many millions of dollars it takes to do that. Or the same with like our Lord of the Rings fascination, that we keep making those movies and shows, but it's always live action. It's just kind of weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Rohirrim movie didn't do well at all in that space.
What movie?
The Rohirrim movie that came out, as you say, right? The what? The who? The
Exactly.
what?
Yeah, I don't even know. I don't
It
even
was
know about it.
the Lord of the Rings thing about the Rohirrim, which were like the horse lords, and they did set in the Loder Jackson space. But basically, I think they were about to lose the rights, and they had to do something. So they basically did an animated movie, and it was apparently quite good, I guess, from what I've heard. But so
But no one saw it.
nobody saw it
Right.
because they're like,
Yeah, it's
animated movie for adults. What?
Yeah,
it's weird.
it doesn't translate, and it is strange because there are things that, like you said, you can do in animation that just works so much better and is so much more impactful than anything even you could do with CGI or with all the special effects that we have available to us, and for a fraction of the cost, I'm sure.
Yeah,
But
imagine like what a Marvel movie could do if it were full. I mean, not of course they've done things like this before, but
The little
the thing is, like,
series and stuff.
yeah, but like their big actual theatrical things are never animated. It's just kind of a weird cultural thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they are really heavily animated.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, they're
Right.
just animated to look photorealistic.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, I have to be the person that brings in the photorealism stuff, which is I'm excited about this show Knuckles over on Paramount. So it's basically an addition to the Sonic series, and I was totally expecting this to be a straight up just animated show. Like that's anytime you have like a big movie, they down budget it and they get the the kind of lower cost animation. But no, it's actually like a full on. It's just like the movie. It's got Idris Elba as voicing Knuckles. Like a lot of the cast is back except for the guy from Paradise, and it's full on live action. The action is really great. The writing's really funny. It's great. It's a good show.
Nice.
I was shocked that learned this existed. I
Right?
It just seems like such a random, like, what is the audience for a spin-off of a Sonic movie? I guess it does have Idris Elba, so there's some name power there, but I just didn't know. I have not seen this yet. I was just shocked that this spin-off existed. And I say this as someone, I have a Knuckles stuffed animal back
Oh,
in
nice.
right in here.
All right.
I'm gonna
So,
go with
I mean-
Gen X nostalgia is part of
Maybe. It
the
works for me. I'm Gen X, so there you go. Oh, it's Knuckles. Oh,
Yeah, like, I mean, I'm a huge fan, and I like the movies, but even I'm not checking out the Paramount
Didn't know it
Knuckles
existed.
spinoff. So
I think
know,
you'll be
but it's
pleasant
cool
if
to
you
hear it's
do,
good.
which I think you should. You'll be pleasantly surprised. I mean, if you got like Paramount for like the Star Trek subscription, which is gonna start paying off again here in the next month, then it's really good. It was interesting. We had that exact question last night. We're like, who is this for? Because it got like kind of super like involved and dark, and it's like a 30-minute show, and you're like, whoa, okay,
so
this
not
is
for kids.
like, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it would just go over the kids' heads, not gonna be like, whatever. Yeah, crazy. All right, well, good stuff. Go check out all these great shows, and let's. Thanks for joining in for another week of Front End Fire. This is really fun, and thank you so much for putting us on the recommended list of podcasts. And if you, of course, jump on our Discord server, you want to talk to us there. We're always happy to talk to you. Leave a nice comment or rating, that would be awesome on your podcast listening app. Always great for that. So thank you so much for your support.
Yeah, we'll see everybody next week.
Yeah, see you next
See you
week.
then.